Welcome to Stakelbeck Tonight. I'm Erick Stakelbeck, and we just witnessed the worst massacre of Jews since October 7th, 2023. On Sunday, a pair of Islamic terrorists, a father and son, opened fire on a large Hanukkah gathering at Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia. They murdered at least 15 people, including multiple rabbis, a Holocaust survivor, and a 10-year-old girl. Dozens more were wounded. It was a scene of total chaos that was all too reminiscent of the October 7th attacks. But this time it happened in the West. And as this pair of Islamic jihadists fired round after round for what seemed like an eternity, police were nowhere to be found. It was up to an unarmed bystander named Ahmed al-Ahmed to tackle and disarm one of the gunmen. He himself was shot in the process, and folks, pray for this courageous man's speedy recovery. Now, one of the terrorists is in critical condition, and the other, his father, was eventually shot and killed by police. They were Muslims of Pakistani descent, and both had reportedly pledged allegiance to ISIS. An ISIS flag was found in a car near the site of yesterday's attack, as well as an improvised explosive device, meaning the carnage could have been even worse. Australian authorities are now reportedly investigating an Iranian link to the attack. Surprise, surprise. In 2024, the Iranian regime was behind 2 arson attacks in Australia targeting Jewish sites. Israel says it warned Australia's government that more attacks may be coming. And we know that one of the terrorists from yesterday had been on authorities' radar screen for years, yet the massacre still happened. And the response of Australia's woke left-wing prime minister in the aftermath gives some clues as to why.
The Director General of Asia has warned about a range of threats, be it anti-Semitism, the rise of right-wing extremist groups as well.
Did you catch that? Prime Minister Albanese isn't focused on the jihadist in his midst that Australia has foolishly let into the country. No, in the wake of a horrific attack by Islamic terrorists, he's focused on right-wing extremism. From Australia to Europe to Canada, this kind of nonsense is par for the course today among Western so-called leaders. They welcome in waves of Muslim migrants into their countries, and then when those migrants refuse to assimilate and become aggressive, even violent, average citizens get fed up and call for them to be deported. That's when these leaders jump into action, not to listen to their citizens, but to condemn them as right-wing extremists, crack down on their free speech, and denounce their supposed Islamophobia. At the same time, countries like Australia, Canada, France, and the UK have catered to their growing radical Muslim populations by distancing themselves from Israel and even recognizing a Palestinian state over the objections of Israel and the United States. Meanwhile, the Islamists run wild. Here was the scene in Sydney, Australia, on October 8th, 2023, just one day after the October 7th massacre. Watch. Again, that was Sydney, Australia, not Gaza. And they were chanting, "Gas the Jews," just hours after Hamas terrorists rampaged through southern Israel. Folks, as you can see, yesterday's Sydney terror attack did not happen in a vacuum. Neither did the other incidents involving Islamic terrorism these past few days. In Syria, an ISIS terrorist murdered 2 U.S. soldiers and another U.S. citizen who was working as an interpreter in what was a brazen attack. And in Germany, authorities broke up an Islamic terror plot to attack a Christmas market in Bavaria. 3 Moroccans, an Egyptian, and a Syrian were arrested. The jihad has come to the shores of the West. The West let it in. And right now, other than the United States under President Trump, the West doesn't seem to have what it takes to preserve Judeo-Christian Western civilization. The hour is late. How many more wake-up calls do we need? Coming up, Pastor Sammy Rodriguez joins us to break down the urgency of the hour and how God is moving amid all the madness. That's next. Stick around. Welcome back to Stakelbeck Tonight. We just walked you through the horrific details of Sunday's Islamic terror attack in Sydney, Australia. 15 people murdered during a Hanukkah celebration, a Jewish community targeted in cold blood, and a father and son pledging allegiance to ISIS carrying it out. Our good friend, Pastor Samuel Rodriguez, is president of the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference and lead pastor of New Season Church in Sacramento, and he joins us now to break down yesterday's events and how God, despite it all, is moving in America and around the world amid all the darkness that we're seeing. Pastor Sam, always great to see you. First thoughts after yesterday. Look, this anti-Semitic turn in the Western world, Pastor Sam, and I consider Australia, of course, a part of the West. It's taken a very dark, very violent, and demonic turn. What are you seeing overall?
Well, first of all, great to be with you, my dear brother. Gas the Jews mantra, unchecked, will lead to kill the Jews massacre. I have great friends in Australia. I actually oversee two very prominent ministries in Australia, and it breaks my heart. Why? The jihadist ideology can only exist when woke progressive governments in the Western world create space for these ideologies and put them in the same scale as other ideologies. The pushing away of our Judeo-Christian value system, the embracing of progressivism, socialism, Marxism, cancel culture, wokeism, that undergirds this jihadist ideology. I want your audience to understand there is an ideology. It is jihadist. It comes from Islam, extreme Islamic interpretations of the Quran, which believe in killing of the infidels. The objective is killing of Jews and Christians and Gentiles and people that are not Christians, that are not, better yet, that are not Muslim, the killing of the infidels. They also believe in doing things with little girls and boys, mutilating sexually little girls. They also believe in totalitarian, authoritarian governmental structures. That's jihadist. And it's permeating the Western world. You referenced the UK, New Zealand, Australia, France. There are governments creating space in the name of what? Hyper tolerance. We are not to tolerate values and ideologies that run counterintuitive to the image of God in every single human being. We are not to tolerate evil. I just said it. We are not to tolerate evil, Eric. And we're tolerating evil. Did you hear the Australian Prime Minister, what he said?
Yeah.
He actually conflated the argument with right-wing, right? That jihadism is the opposite of center-right ideology. The opposite, complete opposite. It's right, center-right, not extreme cuckoo for Cocoa Puff right-wing, but center-right, conservative governments are the ones pushing back on the jihadist ideology. And then we had the premier of South Wales who had the audacity to say, the problem here is guns. Of course, because guns have souls and guns know the difference between right and wrong. And guns have an ideology. Eric, it's this ludicrousy that is creating space for what we saw on Bondi Beach. And unless we wake up, unless the Christian church around the world wakes up, unfortunately, this will continue to happen.
It's madness all around. And as you said, it's all about the ideology, Pastor Sam. It is jihadist ideology. By the way, we saw another example of it on Friday in Germany. They broke up, German authorities broke up a plot to attack a Christmas market in Bavaria. So this continues to happen. And when I look across the landscape of the Western world, I see Donald J. Trump standing tall and not much else. He's a Churchill in a sea of Chamberlains. Pastor Sam, how concerned are you about the Western world and the lack of defense of Judeo-Christian Western civilization as weak leaders invite waves of Muslim migrants in?
Of course, weakness attracts adversity. And you stated that completely accurately as it pertains to Donald Trump, President Trump. We had the privilege of being with him last week at the Oval Office, a group of of faith leaders, be it the conduit of the White House Faith Office. Without a doubt, he is the firewall. He is the firewall. Look what's happening in the UK with little segments in neighborhoods creating space for Sharia law. And again, it's that we don't want to be Islamophobic, sort of. Of course, no one is. That notion is just a red herring. We believe that every single human being is created in the image of God. Absolutely. And we believe we all have God ordained rights that we can exercise accordingly. But when what you espouse and what you believe diminishes, dilutes, contradicts the image of God in human beings, when you want to do another human being harm, you put your political stance on the side. Collective society must emerge and take actions against that. And that's what's not happening in the Western world. The UK is overrun right now by jihadism, by that jihadist ideology. New Zealand, Australia. Hey, Eric, I don't want to step on any eggshells right now. Maybe you want to edit this. There are parts of the U.S., my friend, parts of the U.S. Yes, I'm calling out parts of Michigan and other parts of the country.
Dearborn, for example.
That are beginning to, Dearborn, that are permitting, talks Sharia law, neighborhoods, even in the great state of Texas, an attempt to pass Sharia law. That's actually happening. It's not conspiracy theory. It's actually happening. What have I stated on multiple occasions with you, Eric? We are what we tolerate. We are what we tolerate. But I do believe, here comes the optimism, I do believe a measurable pushback is beginning to take place. Yeah. The election in Chile of a conservative president addressing these issues of jihadism and unfettered immigration without vetting individuals coming into Chile. Across the world, we saw what took place in Germany. We're seeing the emergence of governments going, enough is enough. Something has to be done.
Yeah, we are. That was very encouraging in Chile, like you said, Pastor Sam. But I think it all starts, this resistance in Washington, D.C. with President Trump. Tell us more about your visit to the Oval Office last week. And you're really seeing signs of encouragement, right? A lot of darkness in the world right now. Of course, we had a ISIS terror attack that killed 3 Americans in Syria over the weekend. So the list goes on that front. But Pastor Sam, bring some more of that encouraging news that you're so well known for and that you have a front row seat for. Again, you were just in the Oval Office last week.
Yeah, we were in the Oval Office. We had an opportunity we had a 2-day retreat of the National Faith Advisory Board and working, of course, with the leadership of Pastor Paula White and Jenny Korn. I had an opportunity we had Bobby Kennedy, Christy Nome, conversations that I can't share the details here, of course, because of our ethical agreements and so forth, but pretty amazing, eye-opening conversations. And then subsequently, we wrapped up with President Trump, who was as amicable and affable and loving and caring and jokeful as ever. And we spent some time with President Trump, and we concluded by praying with him and over him. I do see optimism. In this nation, we're seeing the emergence of a Generation Z, that is committed more to biblical orthodoxy than even Generation X or millennials. There's an awakening, a spiritual revival taking place in America, primarily in Generation Z. So we're seeing some great things take place. Now, it requires all of us to be vigilant. It requires all of us to wake up and say, for such a time as this, we're on this planet to fill the earth with the glory of Jesus, to advance the kingdom of heaven, what I deem as the Lamb's agenda. We have a clarion call issued right now. This is the moment to push back on these ideologies, these social constructs, these teachings permeating society, literally killing lives. But I do believe the Church of God, the Church of Jesus Christ in America, Eric, watch this, is more awake than ever before. Yeah. We are awake now like we woke up during the Black Robe Regiment of the mid-1700s after the First Great Awakening. So, but we're not done waking up yet. There's still little sectors, but I believe the church is waking up, and we're going to see the glory of God fill America like never, ever, ever before.
Amen. Pastor Sam, love it, my friend. Merry Christmas, folks. Be sure to follow Pastor Sam on X, Instagram, Facebook, across social media. Pastor Sam, great stuff. God bless. We will see you again soon. Welcome back to Stakelbeck Tonight. Folks, as we wrap up here, I want to wish all of our viewers, our Jewish friends in particular, a happy Hanukkah. And this is known as the Festival of Lights, which really is fitting because Jesus said in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 16, in the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. You know, look, we've been talking about some very heavy subject matter tonight, the horrific terror attack in Australia yesterday and the spread of darkness around the world, in the West in particular. But Jesus says, no, as followers of Jesus, we must shine our light in the darkness, walk the walk of faith for all to see. Let's continue to do that, folks. Walk blamelessly before the Lord, because I can assure you, people are watching, and there's a great harvest of souls out there to be won for such a time as this. Tomorrow night, great Israel breakdown from our dear friend Mati Shoshani joining us from Jerusalem. It's going to be good. Until then, God bless you. We'll see you soon.